Welcome back to the Berg Podcast. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are continuing to revisit some of our core values, some things that we've already talked about. And if you caught the last one a couple weeks ago now, 2-3 weeks ago, we're kind of going through core values, what they mean to us. Do they still stand up? And then and then replaying the episode, so to speak, so that we can revisit these things that we've talked about more than a year ago now that are pertinent to who we are as an organization. And this week, we're revisiting our core value of embrace every challenge. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to revisit the episode. I didn't get to listen to the entire thing. But I was kind of thinking about this one, right? And when you go back and you listen, more than a year ago or so now, what we're talking about and challenges and how we approach challenges, it's interesting to me to hear the perspective. And we'll play the episode here in a few minutes so people can listen to it again, or they can go back and listen to it. But the idea of how the challenges are different, but the approach is the same, right?
Well, it's fun. It's actually, I did get to listen to part of it, and you listen to it. And what I'm listening to it now is for two things. One is, does it stand up, and is there anything we need to, talk around? And the second thing is just to, hear how we did it back then. That's kind of fun too, because that's we're in the very beginning of what we were doing, and like listen to them like, something sounded funny or that kind of stuff, but. This one I think is so interesting in relationship to, this is words on a page and we're trying to bring life to it. And when you say something like embrace every challenge and everything's going good, yeah, that sounds really cool. And like, yeah, we're going to do that. But when you're actually in something and you're going through it, that's when it makes the rubber hits the road. That's where, the goings get tough, the tough get going. That's exactly where this type of thing hits. And so, until you actually do it or go through something at any level, from personal life to, laboring with a shovel to running a machine to running a job to running a company, it sounds good. And but when you actually have to do it, that's when it's the true test of how it works.
Yeah. And when we talk about embracing a challenge, right, we approach that, each of those things the same way, whether the challenge was labor shortages or increased in material costs or supply chain shortages, we're going to try and approach that the same way, to look for a solution that gets us through the process and addresses the issue, addresses what the challenge is, and face that challenge head on, be honest about it, and be open about what we're facing, and then move forward and find a path through that gets us to the next step. And we always say, you can look back, and we're going to look back and laugh about this, and to a point when you listen to the podcast before, some of the challenges that we had before, I'm like, well, that was a challenge, but it wasn't, we saw our way through. It seems easier on the backside, whereas it seems more daunting as you look into the face of a challenge. And I think that speaks to what Ford's saying, which is, it is easy to say, we're going to embrace every challenge. Like, well, of course you are. Would you even want to be involved with somebody in any aspect of your life if you said, hey, are you going to embrace every challenge that you face? And like, no, I'm not. If challenge comes, I'm going to bail. I'm going to
pivot. I'm going to pivot.
Yeah, I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to go a different way, and we're just going to go around it. And it's that's not the people that I would want to surround myself with. It's not the people that we have surrounded ourselves with, and it's not the people that make up Berg Construction. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what the challenge is, the key is facing it and being honest with yourself, as a group, to say, this is the challenge. Let's understand the dynamics of the challenge. And to some degree, and this is where personality differences between the three of us play a little bit. I think that it takes me longer to want to know why we got to the problem, right? I think that from an analytical standpoint, Brian needs to know why we got to the problem. Like, let's get to the bottom of how this problem happened. And it's where our personalities really suit our responsibilities. My job is to get us through the problem. And that may mean it might not be the cleanest route. It might not be the easiest route. It might not be the best route, but it's going to be the most, just continuing to move forward at a steady pace that keeps us going. And Whereas on your side, you need to look at it and analytically say like, wait, Dan, was that the best? Is this the best decision you can make, or have you thought about it? And that's how you help me a lot of times, is you make me think about it and pause for a second. But I also think from my side, we got to keep moving. So all of that to say, as we come into challenges, whatever they are, we just have to face them and as a team and work together and work through them and know that we're going to get through the challenge, because that's who we are. That's a core value.
Yeah. And one of the things that we said in that podcast was that you do sort of figure out during a challenge, not only who you are, but who you're standing next to. Right. And I don't think we said it quite that way, but at that point we were dealing with some challenges. Today we're dealing with some challenges, and different sets of scenarios each time. But we, in both cases, have seen our team stand next to us, trudge through it and continue to look for solutions. And that's a testament to our people, and continues to be, the way we want to do our work. So,
yeah. And Ford, I don't know if you disagree about this, but it's never going to be easy, right? I say that, and then I say, well, that's not true. I can look back on, the 10 years that Ford and I have been doing this actively together, and say there have been times when it was, we were riding high. We felt good. Things were good. But I think my perspective now, being a little older, is I look at it and I say, things are never going to be easy, because when they're easy, it's just a brief moment in time. You know what I mean? It's a brief moment in time where you come out of something and you're going to have to go back right back into something. And that's where a nice even keel really becomes important, that you're just going to ride. You don't get too high in the highs and you don't get too low in the lows, because you're going to have to make it through.
It's waves in an ocean, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's the joke is, when you're on high, you're just waiting, not to be pessimistic, but that there's going to be a low coming behind it. Like, it's just, that's the nature of the waves. It's not, there's no smooth glass water on the edge of an ocean. Like, that's just not it. So when it's good, you got to ride that and do the best you can at that point. When it goes down, you got to ride that and do the best you can at that point. There is no, flat ground or, they show like trajectories of business is supposed to be like just one angle going up. It's like, yeah, dream on. Like, that's never a reality.
All the charts are drawn with clean lines, aren't
exactly.
they?
Somebody had a nice ruler and just put like a line from here to there, and it's like, that is not how this goes.
Yeah,
it's
we're supposed to climb, flatten off, and then retire, right?
Exactly. That's what the books at school teach you. Let's get to the real world here. And
just,
it's not that.
But it is just that they oversimplify. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if you look at the growth of Berg, it can be a very straight line if you just stand far enough away from it. But the closer you get to it, the more you realize there's ups and downs. And, when Ford said about the ocean and the wave, I like to surf, and skiing has a similar thing for me. But I always think, like, there's nothing more exciting than being at the very top of a nasty, huge wave in a hurricane. Like, there's no more adrenaline I've ever gotten than sitting there. Now, that's for a split second. And then you start to go down and you realize there's a wall of water behind you, nowhere to go. Like, all of a sudden it's complete chaos behind you. And the people that are really good at surfing, not me, but the people that you would see pictures of, they're completely calm, and whether you make it skiing in moguls, and they say like really good mogul skiers look like they're on a Barca lounger. Their upper bodies don't move, but it doesn't change what they're actually doing. It just changes how they're managing that ride, and that really becomes what each of us, whether it be Ford, as the owner, or the newest guy as a fresh 18-year-old laborer. It doesn't matter. It's that you approach that day and you say, I have a goal, and I'm going to try and get to that goal, and I'm going to work to that goal. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And I'm not going to get caught up in the ups and downs of that moment. Whether it's hot or it's raining or it's snowing you don't get caught up in that. We just got to get this job done, and let's just go through and do it and be effective and do a good job. And you do that and you piece those things together and you end up with history. You end up with a story that's a very straight line that was never straight at all.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a good synopsis. We're gonna play the episode for you now. And again, thanks for joining us, and we hope you get something from this. All right, welcome back to the Bird Podcast. Thanks for joining us again. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. Today we've got myself, Brian. Also joining us is Ford and Dan. And we're working through a series right now about our core values. And hopefully you've had a chance to listen to some of the other ones by now. But The one we're going to talk about today is embrace every challenge. So, embrace every challenge. Only through discomfort do we learn and improve. We consider every challenge an opportunity to persevere and grow into the best version of ourselves. So, Ford, I'll turn it over to you. Let's talk for a few minutes. What does that mean?
Well, I think that ties to growth of a human being. I think that ties to, in our world, I talk to builders, right? And site contractors are their biggest challenge because we're the only people that are going to find something under the ground they don't know about. They know how many 2x4s are going to go in the house, how many windows, how many feet of electric wire. But under the ground, you're not sure what you're going to find. And so for us, it's finding that we're constantly having a new challenge every day. Very few times do we get a smooth 6-month process. It could be you have trucks lined up for that day to haul dirt. Truck blows a tire, truck doesn't show up. It could be you're digging in, you found a water line that wasn't supposed to be there. But through that, you gain experience of how to fix something, of a new set of skills. You figure out that I tried this new thing because something wasn't working. We found a new way to do something. In our business, there isn't a lot of new technologies. There isn't a lot of new things that are drastically changing what we do. But the small things are what matters. So that little bit of learning, and every job we do aren't great. They're not every one of them is going to be a cakewalk that we just go in, get done, and move on to the next job. There's very few jobs in today's, they joke about for the builders, all the good ground is gone. Like all the good flat fields are gone. We're working on the sides of hills. We're putting retaining walls up to try and make ground flat. We're working in the street, or we're demoing old facilities and making them into something new and more important now because that's what the space we have left. And so, if we did the same thing every day, and that's one of the most enjoyable parts about what we do is, for the most part, we don't do the same thing every day. We do the same type of work every day, but we don't do the exact same thing, which keeps it fresh and keeps it interesting instead of just doing monotony. And so that's where I see this working.
You mean not everything you're going to do is fun?
Depends on your perspective, I guess, on that one. But there's definitely jobs that are not fun. But the only way to get to the next fun job is to get that job done. Well,
and sometimes you can find joy or success in the process, right? And the final product, getting through something that's challenging. That what you said there reminds me of something that Mike Rowe had said before, right? He said, you don't chase your passion, you take your passion with you. So a lot of people think that they got to chase something that may or may not actually exist. And by chasing passion, it means you always got to be happy. But there's a lot of joy, a lot of happiness in something that's earned and accomplished and that you got to fight through sometimes. So it's good. I like that.
Well, it's funny. I wasn't going to, I couldn't have possibly fathomed I'd talk about this on this subject, but I mentioned it to you, I think, and Ford this morning. We were pulling weeds in my house, and I told my girls they're going to help me pull weeds because that's what I want them to do. They got to work a little bit. And Charlotte, my daughter, told me that it wasn't entertaining. And I almost fell over. I was like, not entertaining. I mean, my daughter thought that pulling weeds was entertaining because I apparently like it so much that I do it all the time. So it must be entertaining. And it just sort of struck me. Yeah, it just sort of struck me. By the way, side note, I hate pulling weeds. All right. And if my wife would allow it, I would just nuke the entire yard. But if you know my wife, we're not nuking that yard.
My kids think that my wife enjoys doing laundry.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, along a similar line. But it works into your point of embrace the challenge. But it's to get really back to the subject. I think it's not just about embracing the difficulty, the struggle of what we do, and the reality that we're dealing with unknowns, and whether it be existing in the ground rock unsuitable or something we put there, whether somebody put waste there, unsuitable soils were dumped, or there's existing utilities that weren't properly marked. Those are all obviously challenges that we have to embrace. But I think when we really talked about it and when we got there, I mean, truthfully, like Tom Berg comes to mind. You know what I mean? Like that's what we're talking about. I'm talking about we would just run into stuff and go away from the dirt world and go to snow and we would say like, okay, well, how can we possibly solve this issue? Like, this is a problem. Like, one that comes to mind for is, remember back in the day, we were trying to figure out how we could clear a curb line more quickly. And there was one way, and that's you give me a plow truck. I drive like 45 miles an hour with the plow riding on the curb.
Jersey in the house.
Jersey in the house. Tom Berg has a heart attack because I'm going to break everything, including myself. But the curb line is cleared if you throw enough saltwater brine over the top of it. So Tom was struggling with it. And one day, I don't even think me or you or I were there, but Tom decided he would just take a plow or a pusher box. I don't even remember what it was. And he just took a torch and just cut a 8-inch reveal out of it. And he was like, what if we just ran along the edge with this? And it was a crazy idea, but it did work. And then eventually someone, clever enough and more desiring of apparently being wealthy, came up with the idea to make some of these pushers that articulate and move around. So because of that, then we went to those pushers. But that's really what I think we're talking about is, as a company, we want to take a challenge, something that's in our way, and say, what's the best possible way we can solve this problem so that we get to the end?
Yeah, and I think that boils back to right now, the labor market is a challenge for every company out there. I don't even care what industry you're in. There's just lots of work out there, and only so many qualified or people that are interested in doing it. And for every company, that's a challenge. And I was actually talking about it this morning. I said, I go talk to other business owners, and all they do the whole time is just complain, like I can't get anybody to work, whatever. And I just said, I'm done with that. We're all in this room, just got 20 plus years left of being in this business. We have to figure it out. We have to come up with a solution. Sitting there whining or complaining is just not a challenge to deal with. I mean, it'll be a headache. I always talk to people when I was running crews in the field, and I was always like, listen, when you call me, I don't want to know what the problem is. The problem has already happened. I want you to give me 3 options to how we can get to the other side of it. They might or might not work, but just go ahead and use your God-given brain to try something new. Maybe you've never done it before. Give it a try. Flip the bucket backwards. I'm not sure what it is, but the problem has already happened. We can't worry about that anymore. We need to find solutions. That's what we are paid for. That's what, in general, that's how we move forward. And then I joke about it all the time. You have a problem on a job site. First week, it's like, oh, that's really terrible. By about 6 weeks later, it's a story. And by about 2 years later, it's a funny story. Just because you're in the middle of it, it's stressful, and you're like, oh, how are we going to get through this? But you do get to the other side, and then it becomes a story like, oh, you remember that job where we ran into that issue? Oh, that was challenging. And then and after a while, it's like, remember that job? That was a joke. Now we wouldn't even have that problem. But it's just, that's the nature of how you get that experience, is by doing things. That's what it boils down to.
Well, and I think for it along those same lines, you and I have these kind of conversations all the time about places we've struggled before. But we also have the conversation that the monotony of doing the same thing over and over and it going exactly as planned is kind of boring. It's kind of what's fun about this job is it's not going to be the same. I can have the same exact job. It's a 50,000 square foot pad on a few acre site, and it's exactly the same. We've done this over and over again. It will be different than every other time we did it because the conditions we are dealing with are different. And the reason that I think we try to go with the feeling that then these guys who can come up with sayings and clever wording got to embrace as the word is because we actually like it. You know what I mean? Like at least for myself, when it's easy, that's great. But when it's challenging, when you're standing there and you're trying to figure out how to get something done, convince someone that this is the way we should do it, provide a solution to a client or an engineer, that's exciting. It's fun. You get to be engaging. And so it's not just finding a solution, which is important to us. It's embracing the opportunity to find the solution. And that's what, I know for myself, and I know Ford, we've talked about it often. That's the fun part. That's when you get to see sort of Ford and I's personality, that we want to get through to the other side, that we want to get to that end zone. So.
Well, I think even in the one video, Geezy even talks about that. That's one of the intriguings and why he's in the construction industry, is that it has the opportunity to allow him to use his ability to see things differently as a solution versus just continuously doing the same thing forever.
Well, and I think that the other part about this, there's character building and going through something. So you go through something difficult, you make your way to the other side, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you know that you can accomplish things. I think it changes who you are. The next time you're faced with a difficult situation, you can say, well, yeah, I've done hard things before. I can do hard things again. And, I will persevere. I will get through it. I mean, there's a sense that young people don't like challenge or want everything to be easy, or that they only want things that make them happy all the time, right? But some of our hardest working guys are young guys who are not necessarily always looking for the easy road, don't mind putting their head down and pushing through the hard road. And Andrew's a good example of that.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it on another podcast, but it's like, how do you win? Like, that is one of the things that we want to explain to make sure everyone is aware of. And this is one of those times where when we see someone take the bull by the horns, or whatever quote you want to use, and try and figure something out on their own, that really speaks volumes to us of a person. And we have multitudes of those at each age group. But I think that the big thing, as you said earlier, is that a certain age group right now has in general, a bad rap. And while there is people like that, there's people like that of every generation. It's just that it's real easy right now to blame a certain group. And we found some wonderful people in that group, just like we found wonderful people in all different age generations. Yeah, you just are always looking for the best people you can.
You said a funny word there. And you said, winning, the desire to win, right? How do you create the desire to win? I mean, like, I think back to some coaching references, and there's nothing that breeds a desire to win more than winning. When you get kids at a young age, from a coaching perspective, I coach high school lacrosse, but a little taste of winning, it's a sense of pride, and you want more of it, and the lessons learned and the hard work it takes to finish something, to win, to see something through. I think that's an important lesson to learn. If you're satisfied with not winning, or you're satisfied with not doing something challenging because it was easy, I think you lose that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the participation trophy conversation, that's like a whole nother podcast that we're going to have to take on at some point, just because it is so ingrained in the three of us that, we're different people, but we viciously like to win. You know what I mean? I mean, we're not going to get into it, but the weight loss competition between you and I and Brad, became borderline obsessive, according to my wife. Because we weren't even winning anything, but it was just, once it became a competition, and that goes back to sort of something I said I thought I would talk about in this one, which is, just be better tomorrow than you were today. So, because if you do that, it sort of goes back to years ago, I had read something that said that Microsoft could never beat Apple because Apple's not trying to win. Apple's trying to be better tomorrow than they were today. And Brian, our resident Apple expert, knows I'm not even an Apple fan, but it is accurate. Microsoft's always trying to beat Apple. Apple's just trying to be better. Even if they get ahead, they can't pass them because Apple wasn't even competing with them. So I think that, that could easily be a topic for another day. But I do think that you sort of see how we got to be careful that we don't ramble on in these podcasts if we're going to be on our mission and on our beliefs, because that's how strongly we believe in them.
Yep. Good. I think that's a great place to end. Embrace every challenge. I think that, as a culture that we're trying to build here, and as we look for new members of our team, we're looking for people who want to persevere, people who want to win. So, thanks, folks. Have a great afternoon.